Hello, good evening, or good now, wherever you happen to be. Welcome to Doctors and Coaches Corner. My name is Cindy, and Brett is the coach. And as a coach, he has lots of things that he can share about practical experience. And I will try and share some things that I've seen working in programs when we talk about technology. And the topic tonight is technology and education. And I think that that'll take two forms. One, technology in education, meaning the school day, and then how we use that in such a different way in expanded learning. So, welcome. We're glad that you're here. And Robert is our MC, and he will be asking questions and questions that we've been asked before. And if you come on and you have a question, please put it in the chat. We'd be happy to answer or do our best to answer that question for you. So, Robert, you're up.
Yes, our first question is how can I use technology to enhance learning experiences?
So, one of the ways that it's being used in school is to give kids lots of practice in reading and math. And there are all kinds of programs that you can use that are leveled. And as the kids level up, they then move forward. So it might be Lexia, it might be iReady. There are a number of places that you can, and it's a canned program. And then you place the kids in there to begin with. Now, sometimes in expanded learning, we will do extra support. We will let kids designate a time for kids to do extra practice on the school day programs if they have asked for that. But one of the most exciting things that I've seen being done in expanded learning with technology is being done with podcasting. And one of the schools that we work with has at their middle school, they have a club, and that club does a podcast every week. And they decide who they're going to interview, they decide what events they're going to highlight, and then they go out, they gather footage, and they edit it with using Canva. And they also use a free podcast program that they can utilize internally at their school. And then the school day broadcasts their podcast the following week. So every week they're doing a podcast, and that seems to be really exciting for the kids, and they're learning a lot about technology. So I think that that's one of the ways that in expanded learning, we can use technology as an opportunity for kids to learn things that they wouldn't learn just going through with a program. So, Coach, do you have something you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, so we have a thing we call multiple mediums, and we say that's written, and then there's the live version of it, and then there would be video, and then there's audio, and then what we call synthesized. And synthesized is just a fancy AI type video, so to speak. And with the programs out there, the kids can run that, run it through. And not only do we talk about learning styles, but what's the medium of their choice, so to speak. So I think that taking a look at multiple mediums will be an important thing. Also, me being a sports guy, I like to make it competitive, and I'm sure this will come up several times tonight in the answer that I'll give, but try to gamify everything through technology. And, with games now, they have all the different levels and badges and skins and different things of that nature. And ultimately, I'm pretty digitally challenged. Myself, I say I'm a digital caveman, but I still am able to see these things that work with kids and with youth. And I think also the last thing I would say is being able to take the older kids. So if it's elementary school age kids, then you take the middle school kids, bring them down, and like Gma was talking about with the clubs in particular, they could teach them that, or the high school kids coming down and working with middle school, and ultimately even elementary, because as it should be, not always the case. I've seen some pretty talented second graders, but that the high school kids should be at a much higher level and be able to bring in all kinds of different technologies that can help them to learn, to enhance the learning experiences.
Great idea. Awesome. And Robert, how about another question?
Yes, our next question is, what are the benefits and drawbacks of technology in education?
Well, one of the drawbacks is the amount of screen time they'd like to spend, right? Instead of going outside and playing and doing other things. I think that that's one of the downsides is that they can get so caught up in being on the tablet or the Chromebook or some other version, maybe even a phone, that they will give up doing other things. So that to me is a downside, and it can act as a distractor. So I think that what you have to do is weigh that. Is what they're getting out of it uh, worth giving up some of the things that you think are important? So, for instance, one of the things that you may think is important for them is to be able to function in the 21st century, right? Because everything that we have is so digitally um, you are organized around that. And so you want the kids to be proficient. That's for sure. So how much time and how much energy needs to be spent on proficiency rather than outdoors playing, right? So I think that we're always balancing that. But I think that when you do something that's not a program per se, that you really are giving kids lots of opportunities to be active and engaged in the learning, not just sitting with a console clicking away. And I guess the other disadvantage would be if you haven't help them work through cyberbullying, because that certainly can be the case that that happens. So I think there are downsides. I think there are downsides to most everything we do, but there's also upsides. So your part as the adult is to balance and weigh that out so that you can get enough screen time and not only screen time. So, Coach, how about you?
Yeah, so the old saying that your greatest asset can also be your worst deficit, right? And so, we talk about a circle, and I'm putting my hands together like a circle, and your greatest asset is, just right of center, and your worst deficit could also be just left of center, so to speak. So I think that when we talk about the benefits and the drawbacks, that it's a both and situation, as GMA says a lot of the times. It's not an either or, but a both and. So, back in the day, we had, as a benefit, we had what we called Pen Pal, which it took a long time. So, we would write to somebody we're in Bakersfield, California, write to somebody overseas, uh, wherever it was at. And it'd take 2 months to be able to, send something over there and get it back. So if you did that for a semester, you were lucky to get one, maybe two, uh, letters back. And obviously, a benefit would be with email or with text or different things in that nature, DMs, whatever. Technology can be huge as far as benefits can go, just with something as simple as that. So the collaboration amongst distances, it's like back in the day with Paul Revere, to deliver your mail, by horseback. Probably if they said the war was coming, it may have already been over by the time they delivered that mail. So with technology, it makes it nice because it can be instantaneous. So I think there's a lot of benefits like that. I think the drawbacks GMA had talked about, quite a bit, and just, you know, screen time, period, right? So I'm an outdoor guy, kind of guy, sports guy, and I look at sometimes I'll be sitting at a dinner table or something, and there's a family of four, and nobody's talking, nobody's interacting, nobody's socializing, nobody's doing any of that. And I know every other Sunday we'll go to GMO's house one Sunday, then we'll come to mine and back and forth. And it's fun because we have the socialization that's able to go the back and forth, and this person pops off, and then this guy talks, and they're talking, and then it goes somewhere else and whatever. And I think, man, how boring can that possibly be to sit there and look at your screen the whole time? And the last thing I'll say on that kind of slam dunks that point, I remember when my kids, my personal kids that are 28, 23 now, when I pick them up from a sporting event, or my other youngest was a chorus guy and a singer, we'd start talking, right? Because that's what I learned from G-Mom, my mom. And, how's your day? What was going on? Blah, 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 and the answer of, shrug your shoulders, blah, blah, that wasn't going to work. So we had to give answers to that. So I remember some of, especially with Nick, with his sports, because I spent a lot of time with him doing the sports and training him and coaching him. I'd pick up his friends and take them home, and they go, "You're weird." I said, "What do you mean we're weird?" "Well, when you get in the car, you guys talk and ask questions and do all that stuff." And I go, "Well, what is it that you guys do?" And they said, "Listen to music." And I think that, that we've had this digital potential issue for a long time. We want to look at it right now and say, oh, it's the internet or it's blockchain or it's whatever. But it could have been the technology as simple as just music in the car, whereas back in the day, we didn't have that. So I think there's a good balance and counterbalance that we have to take a look at, especially in regards to the youth, because what they'll do is they'll turn you off with the remote, as G-Ma said before, or they don't, they can spend 99.9% of their time or even 100% of their time just doing technological stuff. And to me, that's sad.
I certainly agree. Isn't there a commercial where there's a family sitting around and everybody's texting each other instead of talking, right? And it's supposed to be humorous, but it's really not. They're not interacting at all, just like you said. And so, yeah, that's a problem for sure. So
one more thing I'd like to say before we go to the next question. That was the other thing. So because we did this and the other parents weren't doing this with their kids, on Friday and Saturday night, we'd have a living room full of kids and we'd be talking to them and interacting and different things of that nature. So technology definitely has its place, but it shouldn't take the place of these social interactions.
Absolutely. Thank you. So, Robert, how about another question?
Yes, our next question is, how can I teach youth to use technology responsibly?
So I think if you want to teach responsibility around technology, you must be intentional. You must have a plan for what you're going to do because there are so many offshoots of that. So how do I log in correctly? How do I keep my password private? Would be part of it, especially if you're trying to have a child improve in their math or reading skills based on a technology-based program, right? But how do you do that? How do you respond to certain things that will happen? And the more social media, the older they get and the more they engage in social media, how do you do that? How do you do that in a responsible way? And I think you have to be intentional about teaching them that. So one of the things that is done in this podcast class that I mentioned earlier is that they are teaching the kids about how to interact online in a respectful and a responsible way. And then what to do if you feel like you're being cyberbullied. So they're really doing some things beyond just doing the podcast. But when you do that with the podcast at the center, then how do you do that respectfully? How do you take pictures of kids and let them know that they can opt out of being seen on the screen, right? How do you do that? How do you treat people in a respectful way? But it's done very intentionally. And so that for me would be the biggest thing that would teach responsibility, that you name it, you claim it, and then you have kids work through that and what felt respectful, what didn't feel respectful. So for instance, today I got this alert on my email that said, oh my, you have an account that's compromised, and it put a phone number for me to call. And I thought, that's odd. This company's never, ever contacted me before. So I went online and I looked up the company phone number to call for customer service. Well, guess what? It wasn't the same number. And so and that to me is about being responsible. Now, have I always done that? No, I used to click on the links and do all that stuff. And I don't anymore because I've learned that that's not something to do. So that too is part of responsibility, to not make yourself vulnerable by acting too quickly rather than just saying, no, we'll see, and stand back. So I just think that's part of it. So Coach, I'm sure that you have some great ideas.
Well, that's funny because about 10 things came up in my brain when you were talking. And one of them was my neighbor across the street, 70 years old. I think they're both around maybe 75 to 78. And so they, they sent me a text and said, and the husband blamed the wife, of course, right? Uh, hey, Maggie was on the internet not responsibly, and now our numbers have been compromised. So now we have new phone numbers. So they gave me their new phone number. So anyway, I was laughing about that. The second thing that has to do with phone numbers is an etiquette, which you were talking about. So I don't. I'm digitally challenged, as most people would know, a caveman at best. Um, and so, like on LinkedIn, when I send messages, they'll say, what's your WhatsApp number? And I don't know what that means. So, and even if it's just a regular DM, I'll send them my phone number because I'm old school. I want to grab my phone and be like, hi, this is Brett. How you doing? Whatever. But nobody seems to want to communicate like that because of what Gmod just said, right? Because maybe that's not being responsible on my end, but that is my form of communication. So I kind of am in a wobbler situation because I believe we should act like Jesus and meet people where they're at, as I've said many times over. He doesn't sit in the synagogue and be like, hey, come here, come here. He goes down to the river or goes to the masses or to the marriage ceremony. He goes and he works with them. So I'm still trying to work this etiquette out, myself, so to speak. And I think that if I'm having problems with it, then younger kids or any kids could be having problems with it as well. Cyberbullying, privacy. I'm trying to learn about two-factor authentication and all this stuff, and it's a lot, right? And so I think with the kids, they probably are a lot more native to it than I am. So maybe it's easier, but I still think that GMA's right that, and I think that's good that they're teaching, them how to have proper etiquette online in these different situations and, kind of this common sense education. Well, it may not be so common to everybody, so to speak. The last thing I'll say is this: establish time frames, right? Just give them some time frames and then debrief with them, whether that's a 3 minute time frame. Well, what did you learn? What could you have done differently? What did you like about what you did? What are you undecided about? How will you make it, whether you liked it or you disliked it, and different things of that nature. So I think these kind of inch by inch time frames can be an extremely big deal along the way to be able to teach them responsibility, and that's at any level. I don't care how old you are, so to speak.
Absolutely. And that you can do such a quick response, right? That you respond before you think. And so just like we've talked before about spreading the space, right, between stimulus and response. Just because it's a stimulus doesn't mean you have to click the button. And I think that that's important uh, to share with them. And I do want to just say that my own, not me, but a member of my extended family fell for a scam because they reacted before they thought it through. And so it's just dangerous. You need to be careful and not be so quick on the draw. All right. So Robert, we have another question.
Yes, our next question is what tools support collaboration through technology?
Well, my favorite is Google. Google Workspace is amazing, and it allows you to. It would allow me to work on something, put it into the Google Drive. Somebody else could pick it up, work on it, put it back in. So I think that that's one of my favorite tools is Google Drive. The second one is Zoom, right? I can remember when COVID happened, we happened to have a Zoom account, but didn't use it very often, right? But we had one, and then it just became a mainstay in how we communicated during COVID-19. And I still am on Zoom a lot, and I think that that allows you to collaborate. So you can share, one person can share their screen so that you're following along in real time, looking at the same information And I think that that's very helpful. So I think that you teach collaboration online like you would teach collaboration in a small group. You have to bring people together in some sort of virtual way. And for me, it's not email, because that is a different form of communication than actually getting to see the person and do that in real time. So I think that can be taught, and I think it's being used by businesses around the world, where one person in California puts something that they've worked on, and then somebody picks it up in England, and then somebody picks it up in India, then somebody picks it up in Australia, and then it comes back to the United States. So I think that collaboration is happening, and it can be done just by working on the same project, or it can be done through Zoom or FaceTime or whatever, where you can actually see the person. So Coach, how about you?
I don't have much because I don't do a lot of that kind of stuff. But I know even like a Monday.com where you can see workflows, and that could be working as a collaborative situation. Now we're trying to automate our business, and we're learning a lot on how to be able to do that. So when you said Google Workspace, that was all that I know, and I don't know anything about it. Like I just know the term, so to speak. But I will say that if you want to talk about collaboration with me, myself, and I use ChatGPT all day, every day. But that's not really collaborating with others. But I at least threw 3 names in there because I don't have much to add.
So, but you're very proficient on ChatGPT because you've learned how to prompt it, right?
I am a good prompter at this point, yes.
Yeah. And that's intentionally learning something, which I think is really, really important. Okay,
Well,
Robert.
to be able to pass it on, because like even with Robert today, I was able to send him 4 or 5 things for what he's trying to do for the company that could be helpful for him in regards to helping to automate our company. So that's somewhat collaborative if you can ask ChatGPT, and then even if you just send it via email, it's not like it's overly fancy technologically speaking, but it's still good.
Gets the job done for sure. Okay, Robert, is there another question?
Yes. Our next question is, how can I integrate digital storytelling into lessons?
So, I haven't done a lot of digital storytelling, but I do think that there are places that you can do that. I think Adobe is one of those that allows you to do that. I think Canva allows you to do that. Canva will allow you to make some connections that doesn't happen in just regular PowerPoint, so that you can tell the story. But certainly you can do that with video technology. So if you go out and you ask a question and you film the person responding and answering the question, and if you ask them for a touch point or a story, they can tell you that. And so I think that for me, it might not be as much about with kids about using a platform as it would be to use the technology of video editing, which you can do with Adobe and those other programs that are out there for video editing, but telling the story. And I think that it is so incredibly important if you're working in expanded learning to tell your story, because the story of what you're doing with kids is one that deserves to be told. And if you can get kids to tell it themselves, there is nothing stronger than a young person, whether they're a child or a young adult, saying, hey, I've benefited in this way. And so I might be kind of biased towards doing video and then not cleaning it up so that it looks slick, just cleaning it up so it doesn't look choppy. So that would be my suggestion. So, Coach?
Yeah, so I would go back to the multiple mediums, right? Addressing, obviously, written doesn't seem like it's very digital, but there's ways that you can do that would make it seem more digital. Same thing with live. you can do that as you talked about, via Zoom or, different Skypes or, FaceTimes or, whatever, which is a little bit, and to be able to tell a story that way. But I know that's probably not the meaning and the heart of the question. But I think when you get into the digital part of it, as you said, via video or what we call synthesized, which is a fancy video. And I think tying storytelling, as you mentioned, what we call touch points into it, based off of the topic, whether it's history or ELA or math or whatever. There's a lot of ways to be able to do that. And I'd like to see if Robert would like to comment on this too, because he's more of a digital expert than we are, so to speak. But he may not want to comment on it. He likes being behind the scenes. But Robert, you may want to comment on that as well. But that's just kind of what I'm thinking is, I know you used, Veed. I think it's called Veed or Vid or whatever it is. And, that's a really powerful, amazing way to digitally and video with audio and all that. And then it's got all the captions and different things of that nature to be able to tie all that together is pretty amazing. So, Robert, do you want to speak on that or not?
Yes, I would like to speak on that. So currently we found this software through ChatGPT, which is called Veed, Veed, and we're able to input a prompt and create a story using an AI generated person, and we're also able to do a cartoonish just based off the script that we provide, and that's a really working from experience with I want to say small with the elementary and middle school. I would have implemented that if I would have known about it back then. I would have used that to my advantage during like story time, or during even explaining during explaining step by step. I believe the kids will be more interested and more attentive just listening to a video than you in person. So you could use that to your advantage, definitely.
I guess it's rewinding. Little button and push it back and you can hear it again. And I think that that's helpful. I know I do that often when I'm listening. I go, what? And I'll just back it up several times until I have that. So storytelling, I think, is important. And I think that you can find programs that'll do certain things like Book Creator, those kinds of things as well. But using it in a digital platform, and then think about sending out a digital newsletter that has kids saying, wow, this was so cool, this is what we did, and how exciting that would be for folks. So Robert, we'll move forward.
Yes, our next question is, what role do online resources play in expanding educational opportunities?
Well, I don't know if any of you have ever tuned into the Khan Academy, but that's a great resource. It's especially cool for kids who have math questions. And sometimes I know this is true for me because I'm much older. A child will show me a problem and I'll try and walk them through how I would do the problem. And they go, that's not how we're doing it, right? So the Khan Academy is online and it's free. And kids can access that during homework to get help. And they do help with things other than math, but they will also help with math. And you can actually input your math problem, and then it will either walk you through step by step what to do on it, or it will walk it through by it doing it so that you could do the next problem. So Khan Academy to me is really cool. And then I don't know about younger folks, but I enjoy listening to TED Talks. And TED Talks are filmed and you get experts, people who really and truly know stuff. And it's just a pleasant experience to me to watch and listen to them be able to communicate new ideas. And one of my favorites, as far as communication, he's passed away now, but his name was Sir Ken Robinson. and he used kind of like doodling. I don't know how to describe it. Whereas as he was talking, that's who you heard talking, but they're drawing it in kind of like fast motion while he's talking. And I always found that very fascinating to watch and listen, because it was illustrating the points he made as he made them, but without him being at a chalkboard or doing something like that. So I think that there are programs out there that can certainly support learning. And those would be a couple that I would consider. And Coach, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, I look at myself, and so if I can do it, then anybody can do it. But YouTube, I don't watch, but I listen. So I have what I call an echoic ear, which is like a photographic memory, but with my ear. And when I hear stuff, I retain like 70 or 80% of it. It's a blessing and a curse. The worst, your greatest asset can be your worst deficit as well, like we had talked about earlier. But let's think about this. I have access to the smartest people in the world. I used to have a shirt that said 24/7, 365, right? And then it was like a little workout guy, right? Because I like to work out, and I know with my son who was a professional athlete, we would talk about that, right? You're constantly doing something, whether you're thinking about it mentally or you're actually physically doing something or whatever. And I think about some of the stuff that I've learned across a multitude of subjects by being able to do that. So to me, that's a big deal. Going back to learning styles, which we've talked about many times over, that's my number one, but that's not for kids. So for kids, I think it's like 65% now, it's visual. So you have the visual learners. Well, then what can we do? And so when you talk about that doodle, that whiteboard, whatever, that can be a visual. And, you guys probably, most of you won't remember who's online, but back in the day, they would do things where they would have act like it was like the Post-its, and then they would draw just one little thing at a time on it, and they'd go, and that's how they did things. They put all this, these snapshots together to have the moving picture, so to speak. And I forget what they call those, but when you're talking about the different types of resources that are out there now, right? I mean, somebody could create a whole comic book now using whatever the ... is in minutes now, right? And to be able to use those resources. So I like the 24/7, 365. Also, on top of that, like I said, for me, it's so great to be able to work on whatever 12, 14 hours a day, certain days where I'm just sitting here, but I'm also learning in amazing ways. And then if I really want to learn it, I'll write it down. And then that, 70, 80% learning becomes more like 90, 95% learning. So I think if we can tap into the styles of the youth and then tap them into resources that will be helpful for them, that's a home run.
Absolutely. It is a home run for sure. All right, Robert.
Yes.
Oh, wait, before you ask the question, I have a question for you. Do we have any viewers with us tonight? And if so, do we know who they are? And can we say welcome and glad you're here?
Yes, we do have viewers. We have 4 on YouTube, and we have 5 on TikTok.
5 on TikTok. So welcome to the TikTok folks. I didn't know when they were talking about shutting down TikTok that I was going to be so glad that it stayed around, but I am. So welcome. I'm glad you're here. And also welcome to those of you who are on YouTube. And remember that you can always put in a question that you have, and we'd be happy to try and answer it. Not making any promises, but we would at least make an attempt. So welcome. Glad you're here. And Robert, you're up now.
Yes, the next question is, how can I address the digital divide among youth?
I don't know. I don't know all the lessons that were learned during COVID-19, but one of the lessons that was learned dramatically was about access to technology, especially in rural communities. I have a friend who works up north, and she's called a regional lead. And so that means that on the Nevada side of California, she's up above that, up above Sacramento. And in some of the programs that she wants to visit, if she wants to go there, she has to drive into Oregon to get to them. They are so frontier. And they struggled during COVID because they had not done enough infrastructure to see to it that people had access. But that also happened in small rural communities in areas where you didn't have to drive into Oregon to get. So I think that it became very clear. And so a lot of school districts have put up towers that now make things more available to their students. Many school districts, every young person is assigned a Chromebook that's theirs that they can use. And this is all being done in an attempt to see to it that there isn't this divide, that there isn't a group of people who have zero experience unless they've made a choice to have zero experience, and kids who have tons and tons of access. Now, is it equitable or equal? I'm sure it's not. But I think that we have to be constantly aware that it's possible. And so what we want to do is continue to support them not only face-to-face and in live interactions, but also in intentionally giving them things to do so that that digital divide will not be so recognizable. It will be less severe if we're giving them opportunities to do things online in the school, in the after-school program in particular. And for instance, a really popular thing for older youth, middle schoolers, and I guess for high schoolers too, but middle schoolers and like late elementary grades, like 5th and 6th, is esports. And with esports, they get to play video games with people from all over the world. And yet it's very protected. It's a protected and safe environment, but they have that opportunity, and they probably would not have that opportunity at home. So it's looking for ways to be sure that we are giving them opportunities, not carte blanche. So, Coach?
Yeah, so you guys need to tap into 1-800-hack.com. Just kidding. I was going to say, teach them to hack into the neighbor's Wi-Fi. Just kidding. Yeah, I mean, right, it's ridiculous that not everybody has equal opportunities. And so there's a lot of different programs out there that can help with that. And if you can't get to a program that can help with that. So as an example, back in the day, when I was teaching the middle school kids, I was like, okay, what are the physical activities that we can do with them that they can do until they're 70 or 80 or whatever? So we talked about walking. We were able to do golfing, right? And so we actually, I forget the name of the group, but they actually sent us 100 golf clubs and the little wiffle balls that went with them. And so, right, where there's a will, there's a way. And so if they don't have access to that kind of stuff, then there's grants out there. There's different things of that nature. There's other programs that might be able to help them with that. I think the second thing is too, that we can offer like courses and classes to parents on, ultimately how to, get the tech support, because maybe they have it, but something goes wrong and they don't know how to fix it. So it's one thing to not have anything at all, which is really difficult in my mind and tough, but it's another thing to have it, but you don't know how to reboot it or to make it work, so to speak. So I think there's courses and classes that we can teach them on troubleshooting on how to get it back up and running, because if you're offline, it doesn't really much matter anyway. So that would be the two things I would say.
Thank you for that. I do have to share a story about my friend Danielle. She works in a county office of ed, and she was constantly calling tech service, right? I can't do it. I can't do it. I can't do it. And finally she said, the head guy from tech came and he said to her, Danielle, you have a tool at your disposal that you need to use before you call me again. And she said, I have a tool. And he said, yes, it's called your finger. Turn it off so that it can remember that it was a computer, and then turn it back on before you call me. And she said that she was amazed, and it cut down, over half of her calls. So sometimes the fix is easy, like that. And other times it's like, what the heck do I do, right? You got to have a lot more tech service than that. But I remember I just met with her last week, and she was sharing that story with people that, you all have a technological finger. Just poke the button, turn it off, and try again all over. All right, Robert, you're up.
Yes, our next question is, what are effective strategies for teaching coding and programming?
Oh, coding is, well, first of all, we're coding things all the time, right? Whether it's your garage remote or an alarm. I mean, we just poke buttons, but that's truly coding. But if you want to teach kids how to code, one of my favorites is Scratch. And Scratch is done by MIT. And it's free. And kids can make their own accounts. And they are very protected. Their accounts are protected, and they can go on, and they have all kinds of competitions. They have things for beginners. They teach them how to pull blocks of code. So rather than having to do a JavaScript or be able to type that in, they're able to drag in blocks. What I want is for the person to make a hop. Well, then they drag in a block that does that. So I think that Scratch is one that I have found that works really well. And what I like about it, again, is that the child makes their own account, and then they can use it anywhere they want. They don't have to use it just at school, and it's free. For littler kids, so that Scratch would be probably for like maybe 4th grade and up, but there's also a program called Tinker, and Tinker works really well with the littles, and they're able to start practicing and doing things. But one of the things that I have seen done that is really cool as well is this. You can teach kids the concept of coding without a computer at all. So for instance, if you've ever seen one of those kindergarten alphabet rugs, so they have squares all over in them, or if you don't have that, then you would make that sort of a grid using pieces of 9x12 paper that you would just maybe tape down with painter's tape. And so you have a grid of these, maybe it's 8x6 or something, and you have a start spot, and you ask the kids, what do you need to do to get from here to here? And then they make rules up. Well, you can only move one direction at a time. You can move in an L shape. You can hop over. You can go forward and then turn your body so that you'll go forward again. Anyway, they come up with all of these different rules, which are what you do when you're coding. You have these rules that are behind what you're doing. I want A to happen. I want this to happen. So what I'm going to do is have you do 4 steps forward, turn to your left, make 2 steps forward, hop over a square, right? Whatever it is you're going to do. And so when you work through that with kids in this way where they are actually seeing coding at work, it's much more visual. That's helpful. And then you can add to it by putting obstacles in the way that they can't go through. But one of the people at LACO put together games that they can do like that online, and they have to create a hot dog. And they have to figure out how to pick up the condiments, the pickles, the wiener itself, the bun, the ketchup, the mayo, all of those things. They have to figure out how to pick that up and then get out to go to the tables. And she's created quite a few of those. And they're not coding, but they're learning about what coding does. Because coding is a language that tells the technology what to do, and that makes it very concrete and practical for kids because they go, oh, I can't just go slide over it. I have to have rules of engagement. So that would be something else you could do to help with coding. So Brett,
Well,
how about you?
I gotta go because I'm hungry. Talking about the hot dog. It's almost 7 o'clock here. Yeah, I like what you said. Starting with the visual platforms, whether it's Scratch or Code.org or dot dot dot. There's a whole bunch of them out there.
Mhm.
I think the other thing too is to integrate coding into games and or projects. I think that's a good thing to do. My favorite is real world tasks, whether that's creating an app or creating a website. And now, as we're finding out ourselves with our business, like you said, where it's taking chunks of code, or I know I did something today on ChatGPT and it wrote the whole code in Python. And so I sent it to Robert, and Robert said, yeah, but it's not always right. I said, well, hey, this is simple. I go, get off your duff over there. He said, yeah, but it's not always right. But anyway, but to be able to do that, I mean, even the thought of being able to do that. And so what happens is that they get these creative juices going and flowing that they've been losing over time because they're, just pushing buttons all the time. But now they're having to think, well, what about if I did this? What about if this happened? Well, what about if I did it this way? So on and so forth. And then the other thing is, I mean, like for me, I think it's amazing that these middle school kids or even elementary kids, and for sure the high school kids, as Gma was saying, with the podcast, you could create a podcast, but you could create a whole business, right? And you could teach them through coding. There's a lot of non-code programs, but you could also teach them how to do basic coding. I listened to a little bit of a series today online, and I was like, man, I might be able to even get this, with Python and stuff, which I thought was pretty interesting. So I just think that, look, this is the wave of the future. And I think also, especially with blockchain, if you could teach the kids how to do some basic stuff there, I think that's going to be, very huge for the future. I don't know how quantum computing will fit into all this and, different crazy stuff like that. But I think that it's all going to be there. So anything that we can do to teach them this foundational baseline, then whatever the next, big technology is, it'll be easier for them to grasp versus, somebody like Gma and I won't speak for her, but I'll say Gma and I who are digitally challenged at best. If we would have, grown up in that way and somebody would have worked with us, it'd be a lot easier. Whereas right now we're having to go through a major learning curve to be able to try to figure that out to automate our businesses.
It feels like climbing the face of Half Dome, doesn't it? You're just going straight up and hoping that you will catch things. So yeah, anything that you can do, I think, makes a difference. And I think that even Minecraft has some things that are out there that kids can work with, and they like that, right? And so it's just give it a try. And I don't know if I had to be teaching kids about how to use coding and all that, what I would say to them is, I have no idea how this works, but I'm willing to learn with you. Because I don't have to know how. I just have to be willing to let them explore and ask enough questions so that they can figure it out. Because I certainly don't know how to do all of that. And I think that sometimes as adults, we don't want to say, I have no idea. I don't know. And yet that's something that with these kids who've grown up, if you are 20 or younger, you've never probably not known a smartphone, right? And certainly you didn't have what I grew up with, where you got an operator on the line and said, please dial someone with 3 shorts and a long, right? That's how you got the phone that you wanted. So these kids have had smartphones that are incredibly brilliant. And I do want to say one more thing. When I was a principal, we bought the very first this station for our new attendance system. It was, and it cost us $20,000 for this wonderful machine that was going to capture everything for us. And when we're being trained, the lady said, "Oh, don't do that. You might break us down." And I'm thinking, we spend a lot of money to be broken down. What I know now is that my smartphone, my iPhone 14, is probably has 10 times the functionality that server had, right? That server was the top of the line. And now my phone could just would wipe it out. So that's how technology is advancing, and I think we have to remember that.
Well, I remember back in the day when I had 223 employees. You had the pager, and then right, and then you went to the flip phone, and that's what they actually gave me at my retirement. They spray painted that flip phone gold. They put it on a plaque because I would answer the phone a million times a day. "Hi, this is Brett. Hi, this is Brett." And so they put on the bottom, "Hi, this is Brett." And so I think about the different technology and how we've advanced in just a 20-year period. It's phenomenal. And more importantly, where we're going to go. So if you don't stay kind of in the know now, you're going to be really, really lost in 5 years from now, or maybe even less than that.
I agree. So thank you for that. Okay. I do remember that flip phone, by the way. All right. So, Robert, do you have another question?
Yes, I do. Our next question is, how can I use educational apps to reinforce learning?
Well, there are a couple that come to mind. Kahoot's a good one, and we can use that a lot. And also, you can do quizzes and things like that with Kahoot. And then there is Prodigy, which goes along with math operations. So you can start to look for technologies that will do what you want it to do. I would suggest if you're in expanded learning and you really want to focus on math or English language arts, talk with the school day and see if they will, if kids have access during the day, they have a password. So my grandkids all have an email address and a password, and that's how they get online for what's assigned to them at school. And they can do that at school on the computers that the school gives them, or they can do it when they're at home on their tablet, or they can do it here at my house on my computer, because what they have is this email address, which is pretty important, and then a password. And the password was given to them by the school. They didn't get to make it up themselves, but it was given to them by the school, and they memorized it, right? And so they can get on anytime, anywhere. So if I were going to try and reinforce school day things, I would probably try and connect with what they're doing in the school day so that it's seamless. A kid has a day. They get up in the morning, they go to bed at night. They don't say to themselves, "Oh, well, this is the technology I'm going to use when I'm at home. And this is the technology I'm going to use during my school day. And this is the technology," right? They don't do that. They just have a day. So I would try and coordinate. If I was trying to do something different, then I would be looking for, first of all, anything that's open source or free, so that you can have access to it. And there are tons of open source free things out there. And then I would look to expend funds to do that. So I don't know, maybe that's a long answer, but I would use what's available first and then see if I needed to do all the free stuff first. Okay, Brett, to you.
Yeah, free is good, right? we try to do as much free as we can here. In our businesses, because I mean, shoot, you could be getting a SaaS application or trying to create an AI agent or having to pay a developer or ... It could go on and on forever. So I don't have tons to be able to add to that. I just think it's funny that, again, I've been talking about this for several weeks now. Most people will trash talk, physical educators, that we don't know anything, but a lot of this stuff is built in. So, we didn't have apps back in the day, but what we did, or what the apps are doing now, like encouraging skill building back in the day, we did a lot of skills. right? How do you do this? How, put your arm in, put your hand in the cookie jar, so on and so forth. Well, that's what's happening now with gamified learning, that there's a lot of skills that you have to develop. And the cool thing is that when you talk about a gamified situation, if you don't learn the skills, then you can't go to the next level. And if you don't go to the next level, you're getting left behind, which nobody likes getting left behind, so to speak. And then you're adding a competitive advantage to that, as well as, nowadays with these kids, you can make a living doing this, right? And so you can get skins, or you can make money, and you can win tournaments and do all those types of things, which always takes me back to our dancer, right? When the little 8th grade girl said, I didn't know I was a dancer. And we're like, how in the heck did you not know you were a dancer, girl?
Yep.
You came out the womb a dancer. I'm gonna guarantee you that. But she didn't know because she had never experienced that. Nobody put her in that position. Well, with technology, especially around gamifying, we're able to put these people in positions to where they can, be amazing and succeed in ways, and it goes across all genres, right? They're saying now that ChatGPT has an IQ of 100. Now, that's not an amazing IQ by itself, but it's in every known topic to mankind or womankind. So that's amazing. And guess what? In probably a half year from now or less, they'll be at 130. Well, 130 starts to hit genius status. And then the next one is going to be 160, which is way far out of genius status. Well, if we run a parallel with the kids, we can put them in positions to do the same thing, where they're starting at maybe, that 100 IQ level as a parallel, and getting to 130 and 160, so that they're able to build the next technology that makes all of mankind or woman's kind just so much easier and so much better.
Absolutely. Consult for Kids is going to be doing some work this coming year with it's called Project Z, Mission Z, not Project, Mission Z. And it's going to be online. It's going to be free. There's no cost, but we're going to be working with them to promote this. And it's about the importance of reducing your carbon footprint, and how you can get down to zero emissions. And like I said, it's absolutely free. So if that's something, those of you who are listening tonight, if you'd like more information about Mission Z, because you'd like to take that to the kids that you're working with, please put your email in the chat box, and we'll be able to send you some updated information. And like I said, it's very, very virtually handled, although there are human beings involved as well. So it's kind of both and. So Robert, I have 2 minutes. So if you have a quick question, let's go.
Yes. The last question is, how can I ensure online safety in virtual learning environment?
Well, you can restrict access. That's one of the things you can do. You can put in parental controls so that you can have these privacy settings, so that, so my granddaughter has an Apple Watch. She can't use it to call out, but they always know where she's at, and they can message her. And so you can put parental controls on things so that you are sure that kids are not being victimized. And then you can educate them on doing something. What are things that you need to be aware of, to be alert to, that could be going to cause you problems and grief. And so I think those would be two things I would say. How about you, Brett?
Yeah, I mean, privacy controls, teach password safety, to them, and being able to mix that up. A lot of people, have a same password for everything. That's probably not, super brilliant. So being able to teach them that at an early age, and how will they rotate that through technology, which, they make it extremely easy, so to speak.
Awesome. So thank you for those of you who attended. Thank you, Robert, for keeping us alive and well. Thank you, Coach, for adding your insight to this. And we look forward to that. And we look forward to seeing you 1 week from today